Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. The rain battered the tall windows of Ellington Manor, a grand estate perched on the edge of Boston, its stone walls glowing faintly under the stormy sky. Inside, the master bedroom was a cocoon of soft light and quiet sorrow, the air heavy with the sterile tang of medical equipment and the faint jasmine of Amara Ellis's perfume. At 32, Amara was a vision of resilience, her deep brown skin catching the glow of a bedside lamp, her tight curls spilling loose from a high bun, her dark eyes holding a fire that 5 years of heartbreak hadn't extinguished. She sat beside her husband, Julian Carver, his still form a stark contrast to the vibrant man she'd married. For 5 years, he'd been locked in a coma, his once sharp mind silenced by a car accident that no one could fully explain. Amara's fingers brushed the edge of a leather-bound journal on the nightstand, its pages worn from her touch. Julian's grandfather, Walter Carver, had given it to her a week ago, his voice gentle but firm. He wrote this before the crash. It's time you read it. She'd been hesitant at first, afraid of the pain it might unearth. But now it was her lifeline, each word a whisper from the man she'd sworn to love forever. Tonight, like every night, she opened it, her breath catching at Julian's bold handwriting. Amara is my fire, burning bright even in the darkest nights. Every day with her feels like a gift I don't deserve. Tears stung her eyes, and she traced the ink, her heart aching. 5 years of caring for Julian had turned her into a ghost in her own life. Her dreams of writing a book, of fighting for kids in Roxbury like she used to, buried under the weight of duty. She'd taken on Carver Enterprises, his family's empire, facing boardroom sharks who whispered she didn't belong, a black woman from the wrong side of Boston, playing CEO in their world. But the journal reminded her why she stayed, why she fought. Julian was her home, even if he couldn't see her now. She leaned forward, her voice a soft murmur against the hum of the ventilator. "You're still here, aren't you?" she said, her eyes tracing his handsome face. High cheekbones, a faint scar above his brow, his skin a warm tan that spoke of his mixed heritage. She reached for a glass of water on the nightstand, a ritual born from love and desperation. She took a sip, holding the cool liquid in her mouth, and pressed her lips to his, letting the droplets trickle past. It wasn't medical, wasn't logical, just a quiet, intimate act that felt like a promise, her breath mingling with his, her warmth against his stillness. Her lips lingered, soft and trembling, as if she could will him back to her. Tonight, though, something was different. As her lips touched his, Julian's responded, strong, deliberate, a kiss that sent a jolt through her. She gasped, pulling back, her heart slamming against her ribs. His eyes fluttered open, green and piercing, locking onto hers with a clarity that stole her breath. "I'm here, Amara," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse but unmistakable. "I've been here for a year." The room spun, the rain outside a dull roar in her ears. She stumbled back, her hand flying to her chest, the glass slipping to the floor with a muted thud. "A year?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "You've been awake? For a year?" Julian sat up slowly, his movements stiff but sure, his gaze never leaving her. "I had to know," he said, his tone heavy with something she couldn't place. Guilt, maybe, or fear. "I had to be sure you were here for me. Not the money, not the company." The words hit like a slap, hot and stinging. "Sure?" she repeated, her voice rising, raw with hurt. "I've spent 5 years keeping you alive, Julian. 5 years fighting for your company, your legacy, while the world told me I wasn't good enough. And you tested me." He reached for her, his hand trembling, but she stepped back, her curls bouncing with the motion. "Amara, listen," he said, his voice urgent. "There were rumors, letters. Someone said you were planning to sell out, to walk away with the fortune. I couldn't risk it. Not after Vanessa." Vanessa, the name cut through her, a ghost from Julian's past, his ex-fiancée who'd left him broken before Amara pieced him back together. "So you let me think you were gone?" she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You let me sit here, night after night, pouring my heart out, while you played dead?" "I was wrong," he said, his voice cracking. "I see that now. But I felt you, Amara. Every time you did that with the water, every word you said, it kept me going." Her chest tightened, a mix of love and rage tearing her apart. She'd felt so close to him, reading his journal, whispering to him in the dark, and now it was tainted, twisted by his doubt. "You don't get to do this," she said, her voice shaking. "You don't get to break me and call it love." She grabbed the journal, clutching it like a shield, and stormed out of the room, her bare feet slapping against the polished wood of the manor's hallway. The rain was heavier now, a curtain of silver beyond the glass doors, and she pushed them open, stepping onto the stone terrace overlooking the Charles River. The cold bit at her skin, soaking her thin sweater, but she didn't care. The city lights blurred through her tears, Boston's skyline a distant promise of a life she'd almost lost herself to. Amara sank onto a bench, the journal heavy in her hands. She opened it again, her fingers trembling, and read another line. "I dream of a life with her, a love that burns through time." The words were a knife, cutting deeper now that she knew he'd been awake, watching her, judging her. She'd fought for him, against the boardroom, against the whispers that she was just a gold digger, against her own breaking heart. And he doubted her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from Nia Harper, her best friend. "You good, sis? Haven't heard from you." Amara's thumb hovered over the screen, but she couldn't reply. Not yet. Nia would want to know everything, and Amara wasn't ready to unpack the storm inside her. She thought of her mother, Vivian, back in Roxbury, who'd always said, "Love don't survive without trust." Vivian had never fully trusted Julian, had seen his wealth as a wall between them. Maybe she'd been right. The river churned below, its surface catching the city's glow, and Amara's mind flashed back to the night she'd met Julian 6 years ago in a Roxbury jazz club. She'd been singing Nina Simone's "Feeling Good," her voice raw and alive, and he'd watched her from a corner booth, his green eyes cutting through the crowd. They'd talked until dawn, about music, about growing up caught between worlds. Him as a mixed-race kid in a white elite world. Her as a black girl clawing her way out of struggle. That night, she'd known he was her future. Now, that future felt like a lie. She stood, the rain plastering her curls to her face, and looked back at the manor, its windows glowing like eyes in the dark. Julian was in there, awake, alive, and she didn't know if she could face him. The journal slipped from her hands, landing in a puddle, its pages soaking through. She didn't pick it up. She walked toward the river's edge, her heart a battlefield, and let the rain wash over her, carrying her pain into the night. Back in the bedroom, Julian sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. He'd spent a year hiding, watching her, convincing himself it was the only way to know the truth. But the truth was in her eyes tonight, hurt, raw, and real. He'd felt her love in every drop of water, every whispered vow, and he'd thrown it away for a test born of fear. He stood, his legs unsteady, and looked out at the storm, knowing he'd made a mistake that might cost him everything. Amara's silhouette faded into the rain, and the manor felt emptier than it ever had. The fire she'd ignited in him still burned, but now it was a question. Could he earn her back, or had he lost her forever? Hey, If Amara and Julian's story has your heart racing, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Will Amara forgive Julian's betrayal, or is this the end of their love? Let us know what you think, and stay tuned for the next chapter of their fiery journey. The rain had stopped, leaving Boston slick and shimmering under a gray morning sky. Amara Ellis stood outside a Roxbury coffee shop, her sneakers sinking into a puddle, her breath fogging in the cool air. The neon sign above Soul Brew flickered, its warm glow a faint comfort against the storm still raging in her heart. Last night, Julian Carver, her husband, the man she'd spent 5 years caring for, had shattered her world with a single kiss and a confession. He'd been awake for a year, hiding, testing her loyalty. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife, and now she was here, seeking refuge in the neighborhood that had raised her, hoping to find answers in the familiar. Inside, the shop smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, the air humming with the low thrum of soul music, Aretha Franklin's voice curling through the speakers. Amara adjusted her hoodie, her curls still damp from last night's rain, and spotted her mother, Vivian Ellis, at a corner table. Vivian was a force at 60, her silver-streaked braids pulled into a neat bun, her nurse's scrubs swapped for a cozy sweater now that she'd retired. Her brown eyes, sharp and knowing, softened when they landed on Amara. "Baby, you look like you've been through it," Vivian said, pushing a mug of coffee across the table. "Sit. Talk." Amara sank into the chair, her hands wrapping around the warm mug, but the words wouldn't come. How could she explain the impossible? Julian. Awake. Julian, doubting her. The journal, now ruined in the rain, its promises tainted by his lies. She took a sip, the coffee bitter on her tongue, and shook her head. "I don't even know where to start, Mama." Vivian leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "Start with why you're here, instead of at that big old mansion. Something's up with Julian, ain't it?" Amara's throat tightened. She'd always been close to her mother, but Vivian had never fully trusted Julian, his wealth, his world, the way it pulled Amara away from Roxbury. "He's awake," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Has been for a year. He didn't tell me. He was testing me, Mama, to see if I was loyal." Vivian's eyes widened, then narrowed, a storm brewing behind them. "A year? And he let you sit by his bed thinking he was gone? That man's got some nerve." Amara nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "I don't know what to do. I love him, but how do I trust him after this?" Vivian reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Love don't survive without trust, Amara. You know that. You've been carrying his world on your shoulders, his company, his family, all of it. But what about you? What do you need?" The question hit hard, stirring something Amara hadn't let herself feel in years. She'd been so focused on Julian, on proving she belonged in his world, that she'd buried her own dreams, writing, fighting for kids like the ones she'd grown up with in Roxbury. "I need to breathe," she said, her voice cracking. "But I don't know how." Before Vivian could reply, the shop's door chimed, and Nia Harper strode in, her locks swinging, her leather jacket catching the light. Nia was Amara's best friend, a journalist with a knack for sniffing out truth and a laugh that could light up a room. She slid into the booth, eyeing Amara with concern. "Girl, you look like you've seen a ghost. What's good?" Amara managed a weak smile, but the weight of last night pressed down. She told them everything. The kiss, Julian's confession, the way his doubt had gutted her. Nia's jaw dropped, and Vivian's lips pursed tighter with every word. "That's some soap opera mess," Nia said, shaking her head. "He's been playing dead for a year? Nah, that's not love, that's control." It's not that simple, Amara said, her voice defensive despite herself. He thought I was after his money. Someone sent him letters, made him believe I'd betray him. Vivian snorted. Sounds like an excuse. You've been nothing but loyal and he still questioned you. You deserve better, baby. Amara looked down at her coffee, her reflection distorted in the dark liquid. She wanted to believe Julian, to hold on to the man who'd written those words in his journal. But Vivian's words echoed her own fears. What if love wasn't enough? Nia leaned forward, her voice softer now. You need to get out of your head, Amara. Come with me tonight. There's a Black Book Club meeting at the community center. Folks reading Octavia Butler, talking real talk. You used to love that stuff. Might help you find your spark again. Amara hesitated, the idea of stepping back into her old world both comforting and daunting. But Nia's grin was infectious, and Vivian nodded in approval. Go, Vivian said. You've been living for him too long. Live for you. That evening, Amara found herself in a cozy room at the Roxbury Community Center, the air warm with the scent of cedar and old books. The book club was small but vibrant. 10 people, mostly black, their voices rising and falling as they debated Parable of the Sower. Amara sat quietly at first, her notebook clutched in her lap, but when the facilitator asked for personal reflections, Nia nudged her. Share something, Nia whispered. You've got a story in you. Amara's heart raced, but she stood, her voice shaky as she read a passage from her own journal, written months ago. I'm a fire, but the world keeps trying to douse me. I burn for him, for me, for the girl I used to be. The words poured out, raw and honest, and when she finished, the room snapped their fingers, a chorus of yes, sis, and speak, filling the air. For the first time in days, Amara felt seen, her spark flickering back to life. But the real world wasn't done with her. Back at Ellington Manor, the pressure was mounting. The board of Carver Enterprises, led by Reginald Holt, a silver-haired businessman with a smile like a snake, was circling. Reginald had been pushing to sell the company since Julian's accident, and Amara's role as interim CEO made her a target. At a board meeting in Cambridge, she stood at the head of a polished mahogany table, her navy blazer sharp, but her nerves frayed. The room smelled of leather and coffee, the skyline visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. We need to face facts, Reginald said, his voice smooth but cutting. Carver Enterprises is bleeding money. Without Julian, we're adrift. It's time to sell, Ms. Ellis. Amara's jaw tightened. She'd spent years learning the business, fighting to keep Julian's vision alive, but Reginald's words carried a barb. Ms. Ellis, not Mrs. Carver, a reminder she wasn't one of them. We're not selling, she said, her tone firm. I've got a plan, a film investment, Rising Dawn. It's gaining buzz, we just need time. Reginald's eyes narrowed, and a board member, a woman with a pinched face, chimed in. Time we don't have. With all due respect, you're out of your depth. This isn't Roxbury. The room went quiet, the insult hanging in the air. Amara's hands clenched, but she lifted her chin, her voice steady. Respect's a funny thing. I've earned my place here, same as you. Give me 6 months, and I'll prove it. The board grumbled but agreed for now. Amara left the meeting, her heart pounding, the weight of their doubt heavy on her shoulders. She checked her phone. 3 missed texts from Julian. I'm sorry. Can we talk? I'm trying to fix this. She shoved the phone back in her pocket, not ready to face him. His betrayal still burned, and she wasn't sure she could forgive. That night, she headed to a Cambridge bar, the Blue Note, needing a drink and some space. The place was all dark wood and neon, the air thick with whiskey and jazz. She was nursing a gin and tonic when she saw him. Julian, sitting at a corner table, his navy coat blending into the shadows. He wasn't alone. A man in a suit was talking to him, their voices low, and Amara's stomach twisted. She recognized the man as a contact of Reginald's. What was Julian doing here, and why was he hiding? She approached, her steps deliberate, and Julian's eyes widened when he saw her. "Amara," he said, standing, his voice caught between surprise and guilt. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same," she said, crossing her arms. "Who's this? And why are you sneaking around like some spy?" The man excused himself, slipping away, and Julian ran a hand through his hair. "I'm investigating Reginald," he said, his voice low. "He's been siphoning funds, and I think he's working with someone else. I'm using an alias, Mr. Pierce, to get close." Amara's eyes narrowed. "An alias? So you're still lying to me?" "No," he said, stepping closer, his green eyes pleading. "I'm trying to protect you, to save the company. I know I messed up, Amara, but I'm here now. Let me make it right." Her heart ached, torn between love and hurt. "You don't get it, Julian," she said, her voice breaking. "You broke us. I don't know if there's a right to make." Before he could respond, the bar's door swung open and Cassandra Reed stepped in. She was stunning. Long auburn hair, sharp cheekbones, her emerald dress clinging to every curve. Julian's ex-fiancée, the woman who'd haunted their marriage with whispers and doubt. Cassandra's eyes locked onto Amara, her smile cold and knowing. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Cassandra said, her voice dripping with venom. "The devoted wife and the miracle man. Quite the reunion." Amara's blood boiled, but before she could snap back, Cassandra leaned closer, her words a hiss. "Enjoy it while it lasts, Amara. Julian's always been mine." The air crackled with tension, and Amara felt the eyes of the bar on them. Julian stepped between them, his voice low. "Leave her alone, Cassandra. This isn't your game anymore." Cassandra laughed, a sharp, brittle sound, and sauntered out, leaving a chill in her wake. Amara turned to Julian, her voice trembling. "Is she why you doubted me? Her lies?" He looked away, guilt shadowing his face. "I'm trying to fix it," he said again, but it wasn't enough. Amara walked out, the jazz fading behind her, the night air sharp against her skin. Roxbury had given her strength, but Cambridge was pulling her back into Julian's world, a world of secrets, power, and betrayal. As she headed home, the River Charles glinting under the stars, she knew one thing. The pressure was only getting worse, and she was running out of time to decide who she could trust. The Cambridge air was crisp, heavy with the scent of fallen leaves and the faint tang of the Charles River. Amara Ellis stood in the grand ballroom of the Langston Hotel, her emerald gown catching the chandelier light, her curls cascading over one shoulder. She was here to work, roped into serving as a liaison for a Carver Enterprises fundraiser by Reginald Holt, the boardroom vulture who wanted to sell her husband's legacy. The room buzzed with Boston's elite, suits and sequins, laughter and clinking glasses, but Amara felt like an outsider, her presence a silent challenge to their polished world. She was a black woman from Roxbury, and no matter how sharp her dress or how steady her smile, some eyes lingered too long, whispering she didn't belong. Her heart was still raw from the night at the Blue Note, where Julian Carver, awake, alive, and hiding for a year, had tried to explain his betrayal. His words, "I'm trying to protect you," echoed in her mind, tangled with Cassandra Reed's venomous taunt. "Julian's always been mine." Amara gripped a tray of champagne flutes, her hands steady despite the storm inside her. She needed to focus, to prove she could handle this world, but every step felt like a tightrope walk over a pit of doubt. "Ms. Ellis, you're needed at the VIP table," a coordinator hissed, her tone clipped. Amara nodded. Weaving through the crowd, the jazz band's saxophone weaving a sultry melody through the air. The VIP table was a who's who of Boston power, bankers, tech moguls, and Cassandra Reed, her auburn hair gleaming, her emerald dress a deliberate mirror to Amara's. Cassandra's eyes locked onto her, a smirk playing on her lips. "Well, look at you," Cassandra said, her voice loud enough to draw attention. "Playing the perfect hostess. Tell me, Amara, does Julian know you're moonlighting as a server, or is he still indisposed?" The table went quiet, heads turning. Amara's jaw tightened, her pulse racing, but she kept her voice even. "I'm here for Carver Enterprises," she said, setting a flute down with deliberate care. "Something you wouldn't understand, Cassandra. Loyalty's not your thing." A few guests chuckled, but Cassandra's smile didn't waver. "Loyalty?" she said, leaning forward. "That's rich, coming from a gold digger who latched onto a coma patient for his fortune." The words landed like a slap, and the room seemed to tilt. Amara's hand froze on the tray, her fire flaring, but before she could respond, a guest, a heavy-set man with a leer, grabbed her wrist. "Easy, sweetheart," he slurred, his breath sour with whiskey. "No need to get feisty. Why don't you sit with me? Show me some of that loyalty." Amara yanked her hand back, her voice low and sharp. "Touch me again, and you'll regret it." The man laughed, his buddies joining in, but a new voice cut through the noise, cold and commanding. "She said back off." Julian stepped forward, his navy suit sharp, his green eyes blazing. He wasn't Julian Carver tonight. He was Mr. Pierce, the alias he'd been using to investigate Reginald, but his presence was unmistakable. The man shrank back, muttering an apology, and the table fell silent. Cassandra's smirk faltered, but she recovered quickly. "Well, this is interesting," she said, standing. "Didn't expect to see you here, Mr. Pierce. Quite the coincidence." Julian ignored her, his eyes on Amara. "You okay?" he asked, his voice softer now, laced with concern. She nodded, though her wrist stung and her heart was a mess. "I'm fine," she said, but her tone was clipped. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," he said, his gaze steady. "Somewhere private." Amara wanted to refuse, to keep her walls up, but the weight of the night, Cassandra's taunts, the guest's grab, her own crumbling resolve, pushed her to nod. "5 minutes," she said, setting the tray down. She followed him out a side door, the cool night air hitting her like a wave, the river's murmur a faint backdrop to the city's pulse. They drove in silence, Julian's sleek black SUV cutting through Cambridge's quiet streets. Amara stared out at the passing lights, her mind replaying the gala, the bar, the night he'd kissed her back. She didn't know where they were going until he pulled into the driveway of Ellington Manor, the estate's stone facade looming under the moon. He led her inside, past the grand foyer with its marble floors, and into the pool room, a glass-walled sanctuary where the water glowed under soft LEDs, the air warm with a hint of chlorine. Amara stopped at the door, crossing her arms. "Why here, Julian? What do you want?" He turned to her, his coat draped over a chair, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. "I want you to hear me," he said, his voice low but urgent. "I messed up, Amara. I let lies, Cassandra's lies, make me doubt you. But I'm done hiding. I need you to know the truth." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "The truth? You mean the part where you played dead for a year? Or the part where you thought I'd sell you out for a paycheck?" His jaw tightened, but he stepped closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "I was wrong," he said. "I woke up a year ago in Cape Cod with Dr. Ellis. I could have come back, but I got a letter. Anonymous, but it had details about you, about the company. It said you were planning to sell Carver Enterprises, to walk away with the money. I had to know if it was true. Amara's chest ached, her voice trembling. And you believed it? After everything we've been through? You think I'd stay for 5 years, fight for you, for us, just to cash out? No, he said, his voice breaking. Not anymore. I watched you, Amara. Every night, every word, every time you gave me that water. I felt you, and I fell in love with you all over again. The air thickened, charged with something raw and electric. Amara's breath hitched, her resolve crumbling under the weight of his words. She wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the hurt, but his eyes, green, intense, vulnerable, pulled her in. You don't get to say that, she whispered, stepping back. Not after you broke me. He closed the distance, his hand brushing her arm, warm and steady. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I'm asking for a chance to fix it. I love you, Amara. From that first night in Roxbury, when you sang Nina Simone and turned my world upside down. I'm still that guy, and I'm still yours. Her heart pounded, the pool's light casting ripples across his face, illuminating the scar above his brow, the curve of his lips. She should have walked away, but her body betrayed her, leaning into him, her fingers grazing his jaw. You hurt me, she said, her voice a mix of fire and fragility. How do I trust you again? You don't have to, he murmured, his breath warm against her cheek. Just let me show you. Their lips met, a collision of longing and pain, slow at first, then desperate, hungry. His hands slid to her waist, pulling her closer, and she melted into him, the gown's fabric rustling as they stumbled toward the pool's edge. The kiss deepened, his tongue tracing hers, a spark igniting into a flame. Her fingers tugged at his shirt, buttons giving way, and his hands found the zipper of her dress, easing it down with a reverence that made her shiver. They sank onto a cushioned lounge chair, the pool's glow painting their skin in shades of blue and gold. The moment was more than physical. It was a reclaiming, a shattering of the walls between them. His lips traced her neck, pausing at the small scar on her shoulder from a long-ago accident, a mark she'd gotten saving him. Her hands gripped his shoulders, feeling the strength he'd hidden for a year, and when he looked at her, his eyes asking for permission, she nodded, her breath ragged. They moved together, slow and deliberate, every touch a vow, every sigh a confession. The water's soft lap against the pool's edge was their only witness, the air warm with their shared heat. Afterward, they lay tangled in each other, the silence heavy with what they'd done. Amara's heart raced, doubt creeping in like a cold wind. What was this? A mistake? A surrender? She sat up, pulling the gown strap back onto her shoulder, her voice quiet. This doesn't fix us, Julian. I can't just forget what you did. He sat up too, his hand brushing her arm, but she flinched. I know, he said, his voice rough. But it's a start. I'm not going anywhere, Amara. I'll prove it to you. She stood, her legs unsteady, and adjusted her dress, the pool's light reflecting in her eyes. I need time, she said, her voice firm, but fragile. Don't follow me. He nodded, watching her go, his expression a mix of hope and regret. As she reached the door, he called out, Wait! She turned, and he was holding a small USB drive, his face serious. There's something you need to see about the accident. Amara frowned, taking the drive. What is it? A security video, he said, his voice low. From a gas station near Cape Cod, the night of the crash. It shows a car, Cassandra's car, near the shop where my brakes were tampered with. I've been digging, Amara. She might have caused it. Her breath caught, the weight of his words sinking in. Cassandra, the woman who'd haunted their marriage, who'd planted the seeds of Julian's doubt. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I wanted proof," he said, "and I didn't want to drag you into it until I was sure. But you deserve to know." She clutched the drive, her mind racing. The manor felt too big, the pool's glow too bright. "I'll look at it," she said, her voice barely audible. "But this doesn't change us." She walked out, the cool night air hitting her like a shock, the USB drive burning a hole in her hand. The city stretched out before her, its lights a map of possibilities and pain. Amara knew one thing. Her world was shifting, and the truth about the accident might break it apart or burn it down. The Boston dawn was a bruise of gray and gold, the Charles River catching slivers of light as it wound through the city. Amara Ellis sat in the study of Ellington Manor, her laptop open, the USB drive Julian had given her glowing faintly in the port. The security video from Cape Cod played on a loop, a grainy image of a sleek black car, unmistakably Cassandra Reed's, idling near a repair shop the night of Julian's accident. Her hands trembled as she paused the footage, her mind a tangle of anger and fear. Cassandra, the woman who'd haunted her marriage, might have tried to kill Julian. And Julian, her husband, had known for months, hiding it behind his Mr. Pierce alias and a year of lies. Amara's emerald gown from the Gala hung in the closet, replaced now by a worn hoodie and jeans, her curls pulled into a loose bun. The manor was quiet, its high ceilings and polished wood floors amplifying the emptiness she felt. Last night, in the pool room, she'd let Julian in, his touch, his words, the fire of their shared past, pulling her under. But the morning brought clarity, cold and sharp. His betrayal, a year of pretending, of doubting her, still burned, and the USB drive only deepened the wound. Why hadn't he trusted her with this sooner? Her phone buzzed, a text from Nia Harper. "Sis, you okay? That gala was a mess. Call me." Amara's thumb hovered over the screen, but before she could reply, an email notification popped up. An anonymous sender, the subject line chilling. The truth about Amara Ellis. Her heart sank as she opened it, a video file loading slowly. The footage was dim, but clear enough. Amara, standing in the manor's foyer, taking an envelope from a man in a suit. The audio was distorted, but Julian's voice, "Take the money, Amara," rang out, followed by her own, tense and clipped. "Fine." The video cut to a caption, "Carver CEO's wife caught in payoff scandal." Amara's breath caught, her pulse hammering. This wasn't real. She'd never taken money, never betrayed Julian, but the video was spreading, her phone lighting up with notifications as it went viral on social media. Comments poured in, vicious and unrelenting. "Gold digger exposed!" "She's been playing him this whole time." "Typical Roxbury trash." Her hands shook, tears blurring the screen. Someone had twisted a moment, maybe from months ago, a meeting with a vendor, into a lie that could ruin her. She dialed Nia, her voice trembling when her friend picked up. "Nia, you seen this video? It's everywhere, and it's not true. I didn't do this." "Girl, I'm looking at it now," Nia said, her tone sharp with anger. "This is edited, Amara. Someone's trying to take you down. You know who's got the cash and the grudge for this kind of stunt?" Amara's mind flashed to Cassandra, her cold smile at the gala, her taunt about Julian. "Cassandra," she whispered. "She's behind this, isn't she?" "Bet on it," Nia said. "I'm digging into the metadata. Meet me at my place in Roxbury. We'll figure this out." Amara hung up, her heart pounding. She glanced at the USB drive, the video of Cassandra's car frozen on her laptop. If Cassandra had caused the accident, this video was just another move in her game. But the thought that cut deepest was Julian. Had he seen the viral video? Did he believe it? After everything, could he still doubt her? She didn't have time to dwell. Her phone rang again, this time from Reginald Holt, his voice icy through the speaker. "Ms. Ellis, the board's called an emergency meeting. This video has raised serious concerns. Be at the Cambridge office in an hour." Amara's stomach dropped. "It's a lie," she said, her voice firm. "I didn't take any money." "Prove it in person," Reginald snapped, and hung up. The Carver Enterprises office in Cambridge was a fortress of glass and steel, its boardroom a cold expanse of white walls and black leather chairs. Amara stood at the head of the table, her blazer sharp, but her nerves frayed, facing a dozen board members whose eyes held nothing but suspicion. Reginald sat at the far end, his silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights, a tablet in front of him with the viral video paused on the screen. "This is unacceptable," he said, his voice smooth but venomous. "Carver Enterprises is on the brink, and now we have evidence of corruption at the top. Ms. Ellis, your actions threaten everything Julian built." Amara's hands clenched, her nails digging into her palms. "That video's fake," she said, her voice steady despite the fire in her chest. "Someone manipulated it to make me look guilty. I've been fighting for this company for Julian for 5 years. You know that." A board member, a woman with a tight bun, scoffed. "Fighting or profiting, the video speaks for itself." "It's a lie," Amara snapped, her voice echoing in the room. "I've poured everything into keeping this company alive, my time, my heart. You think I'd throw that away for a payoff?" Reginald leaned back, his smile thin. "The optics are damning, Ms. Ellis. Effective immediately, you're suspended from all duties. We'll vote on selling the company next week." The words hit like a punch, stealing her breath. "Suspended?" she said, her voice rising. "You're punishing me for something I didn't do?" "We're protecting our interests," Reginald said, his tone final. "You're dismissed." Amara stood frozen, the room blurring around her. She'd fought so hard, against the board, against the world, against her own doubts, and now it was slipping away. She walked out, her heels clicking on the marble floor, the city's skyline mocking her through the windows. Her phone buzzed again. "Julian. Saw the video. It's not what it looks like, right? Call me." The message stung, his question a fresh wound. Did he really think she'd betray him? She drove to Nia's apartment in Roxbury, the streets lined with brick row houses and murals, the air thick with the smell of fried plantains from a nearby food truck. Nia's place was a cozy chaos of books and laptops, her locks tied back as she hunched over a screen. "Got something?" Nia said, not looking up. "The video's IP traces to a server in Cambridge, linked to a law firm where Cassandra's a partner. She's playing dirty, Amara." Amara sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. "Why? Why go this far?" Nia spun her laptop around, showing a screenshot of an email exchange. "Found this in a hack I'm not supposed to talk about. Cassandra's been cozy with Reginald for months. They're planning to tank the company's stock, buy it cheap, and split the profits. You're the obstacle." Amara's blood ran cold. "And the video's their weapon," she said, her voice hollow. "They're framing me to get me out." Nia nodded, her eyes fierce. "We'll fight this, but you need to talk to Julian. If he's really on your side, he's got to step up." Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to believe Julian, to hold on to the man who'd kissed her last night, who'd said he loved her. But his doubt, his year of silence, loomed large. "What if he believes the video?" she whispered. "What if he thinks I'm guilty?" "Then he's not worth your fire," Nia said, squeezing her shoulder. "But you won't know till you ask." Amara left Nia's, her mind a storm. She headed to the Blue Note, the Cambridge bar where she'd seen Julian last, hoping he'd be there. The place was packed, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the wail of a trumpet. Julian was at the same corner table, his navy coat slung over the chair, a whiskey in his hand. His eyes lit up when he saw her, but she didn't smile. "We need to talk," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Did you see the video?" He nodded, his jaw tight. Yeah, it's all over. But it's not you, Amara. I know that. Do you? She said, her voice sharp. Because you doubted me before. You hid for a year, Julian. How do I know you're not doubting me now? He leaned forward, his eyes intense. I'm not, he said. I've been digging into Cassandra, into Reginald. That video's a setup. I traced the server to her firm. I'm trying to fix this, but you've got to trust me. Trust you? Amara laughed, the sound brittle. You broke that, Julian. I gave you everything. 5 years, my heart, my life, and you thought I'd sell you out. Now my name's trashed, I'm suspended, and you want me to just trust you? He reached for her hand, but she pulled back. I was wrong, he said, his voice rough. I let Cassandra's lies get in my head. She sent those letters, Amara, made me think you were someone else. But I see you now. I'm on your side. Then why didn't you tell me about the video? She said, tears stinging her eyes. About Cassandra, the accident. You keep shutting me out. He looked away, guilt shadowing his face. I thought I could handle it, he said. I didn't want to hurt you more. You already did, she said, standing, her chair scraping against the floor. I need space, Julian. Don't call me. She walked out, the jazz fading behind her, the night air cold against her skin. The bar's neon sign buzzed, casting a pink glow over the pavement, and Amara felt the weight of everything. Reginald's betrayal, Cassandra's schemes, Julian's doubt, crushing her. She drove back to Roxbury, stopping at her mother's small house, the porch light a beacon in the dark. Vivian was waiting, a mug of tea in her hands. You look like you're carrying the world, she said, pulling Amara into a hug. What happened? Amara broke, tears spilling as she told her about the video, the board, Julian. Vivian listened, her face a mask of quiet strength. They're trying to break you, she said when Amara finished. But you're stronger than them. You always have been. I don't feel strong, Amara said, her voice small. I feel like I'm losing everything. Vivian cupped her face, her eyes fierce. You're Amara Ellis. You've got fire in you, baby. Don't let them put it out. Amara nodded, but as she climbed the stairs to her old bedroom, the fire felt like a flicker. She pulled out her notebook, her pen moving across the page, words spilling out. I'm a flame, but the wind's too strong. I love him, but love might not be enough. The night stretched on, and as she drifted to sleep, one thought lingered. Cassandra and Reginald were closing in, and Julian's trust was a fragile thread. The battle was far from over, and Amara was running out of strength to fight. The Cambridge night was alive with the hum of wealth, the Langston Hotel's ballroom aglow with chandeliers that dripped light like liquid gold. Amara Ellis stood at the edge of the gala, her black gown hugging her curves, her curls swept into an elegant updo that framed her deep brown skin. The air smelled of champagne and roses, the jazz band's trumpet weaving a sultry thread through the crowd of Boston's elite. She was here at Julian Carver's insistence, a last-ditch effort to save Carver Enterprises from Reginald Holt's grip and clear her name after the viral video that painted her as a traitor. Her heart pounded, the weight of the past weeks, Julian's betrayal, Cassandra Reed's schemes, her own suspension, pressing down like a storm. Amara clutched a small notebook in her purse, pages filled with her own words, a book she'd been writing in secret about her life as a black woman, in a world that tried to dim her fire. Tonight, she'd need that fire more than ever. Julian had promised answers, proof that Cassandra was behind the video and the accident that stole 5 years of their lives. But trust was a fragile thing, and Amara wasn't sure she could lean on him, not after a year of his lies. Amara, you're with me, Julian said, appearing at her side, his navy suit sharp, his green eyes intense. He'd shed the Mr. Pierce alias, his presence as Julian Carver a quiet shock to the room. Whispers followed them, heads turning. Boston hadn't seen him in public since the accident. She nodded, her jaw tight. "This better work," she said, her voice low. "I'm not here to play games." He touched her arm, his fingers warm through the gown's thin fabric. "No games," he said. "Just the truth." They moved through the crowd, Amara's heels clicking on the marble floor, her senses sharp. She spotted Naomi Carver, Julian's mother, near the stage, a regal black woman in her 60s, her silver hair braided intricately, her burgundy dress commanding respect. Naomi had always been kind to Amara, but distant, her own grief over Julian's coma creating a wall. Tonight, though, her eyes softened when they met Amara's, a flicker of something like pride. "Amara," Naomi said, pulling her into a brief hug, "you're stronger than I gave you credit for. Julian told me everything." Amara's throat tightened. "I'm trying," she said, her voice barely above the music. "But it's a lot." Naomi's gaze shifted to Julian, sharp and knowing. "You better make this right, son," she said, then turned back to Amara. "Your family. Don't forget that." Before Amara could respond, the crowd parted, and Reginald Holt stepped forward, his silver hair gleaming, his smile a razor's edge. Beside him was Cassandra Reed, her auburn hair cascading over a red gown, her eyes glinting with malice. The air thickened, the gala's hum fading as all eyes turned to the unfolding drama. "Ms. Ellis," Reginald said, his voice loud enough to carry. "I'm surprised you showed your face after that video. Quite the scandal for Carver Enterprises." Amara's hands clenched, but she lifted her chin, her voice steady. "That video's a lie, and you know it. I'm here to set things straight." Cassandra laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Set things straight? You're a fraud, Amara. Everyone's seen the proof. You took money to sell out Julian's company. Why don't you admit it and save us the show?" The crowd murmured, phones already out, recording the spectacle. Amara's heart raced, the weight of their stares crushing. But she felt Julian's hand on her back, a quiet anchor. She stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. "I've spent 5 years fighting for Julian, for this company, for us. I'm not the one hiding secrets, Cassandra. Maybe you should explain why your car was at a repair shop the night of his accident." The room gasped, and Cassandra's smile faltered, her eyes darting to Reginald. "That's absurd," she said, but her voice wavered. "You're desperate, throwing around lies to save yourself." "Am I?" Amara said, pulling her notebook from her purse. She'd planned to stay quiet, to let Julian handle it, but the fire in her wouldn't be contained. "I've been writing my truth," she said, opening the notebook, her hands steady. "About being a black woman in your world, about loving a man who might never wake up, about fighting when everyone says you'll fail. Let me read you something." The crowd leaned in, the jazz band falling silent as Amara's voice filled the room. "I'm a fire, burning through the dark, through the doubt, through the hands that try to hold me down. I chose him, not for his name, not for his money, but for the way he saw me when no one else did. I'd choose him again, awake or asleep, because love isn't a game, it's a promise." Her words hung in the air, raw and unshakable, and the room erupted in applause, a wave of support that drowned out Cassandra's sneer. Naomi stepped forward, tears in her eyes, and took Amara's hand. "That's my daughter-in-law," she said, her voice carrying. She looked at Amara's shoulder where a small scar peeked from the gown's strap, a mark from years ago when Amara had pushed Julian out of harm's way during a protest. "I remember that day," Naomi said. "You saved him then, and you're saving him now." Cassandra's face twisted, but Reginald raised a hand, his voice cutting through. "Enough of this. he said, holding up a folder. "We have proof. Financial records showing Ms. Ellis diverted funds. The board's ready to vote her out and sell the company." The crowd hushed, doubt creeping back, and Amara felt the ground shift beneath her. She looked at Julian, panic rising, but he was already moving, pulling a USB drive from his pocket, the same one he'd given her, but now connected to a projector. "Not so fast," he said, his voice a blade. "Let's talk about the real fraud." The screen lit up with a video, not the viral one, but a new one, security footage from a Cambridge law firm. It showed Cassandra handing an envelope to a man in a hoodie, her voice clear. "Make sure the video buries her. I want Amara gone." The crowd gasped, and Reginald's face paled as Julian spoke. "That's Cassandra paying a hacker to fake the video, and this—" He clicked to another file, the Cape Cod footage of Cassandra's car near the repair shop. "This proves she tampered with my brakes 5 years ago. She tried to kill me." The room erupted, voices rising in shock. Cassandra stepped back, her eyes wild. "Lies!" she shouted. "You can't prove that." "Oh, I can," Julian said, holding up a report. "A witness, a mechanic from Cape Cod, confirmed your car was serviced that night. He found cut brake lines and you paid him to stay quiet. The police have his statement." Amara's breath caught, the truth slamming into her. Cassandra had nearly taken Julian from her, and now she'd tried to destroy her life. Naomi stepped forward, her voice icy. "You're done, Cassandra. Security, escort her out." Guards moved in, but Cassandra lunged, her voice a hiss. "You don't deserve him, Amara." "You never did!" Amara stood tall, her fire blazing. "I fought for him," she said. "Every day, every night. You can't take that from me." Cassandra was dragged out, her protests fading, and Reginald tried to slip away, but Julian blocked him. "You're next," he said. "The board's voting you out tonight. Your accounts are frozen. Siphoning funds was a bad move." The crowd cheered, the tide turning, but Amara's heart was still racing. She looked at Julian, his face a mix of triumph and exhaustion, and felt a surge of gratitude, and something deeper, something she wasn't ready to name. Naomi handed her a small jade box, its surface carved with intricate vines. "This belonged to Julian's father," she said. "Only a carver can open it, with a fingerprint." Amara hesitated, her fingers brushing the cool jade. The room watched, breath held, as she pressed her thumb to the lock. Nothing happened, and her heart sank. Cassandra's laugh echoed from the hall, but Naomi guided her hand to a second spot. "Try here," she said softly. "It's for family." Amara pressed again, and the box clicked open, revealing a jade pendant inside. The crowd roared, and Naomi slipped the pendant around Amara's neck. "You're a carver," she said, her voice ringing. "Always have been." Amara touched the pendant, tears welling as she met Julian's eyes. He smiled, a warmth breaking through his usual reserve, and her heart swelled. The gala resumed, music swelling, but Amara barely heard it. She'd reclaimed her place, her truth. But Julian was still a question, a wound that hadn't healed. Later, as the crowd thinned, Amara and Julian stepped onto a balcony overlooking the river, its water shimmering under the moonlight. The air was cool, scented with damp earth, and her gown rustled as she leaned against the railing. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice soft. "The video, the proof, you could have let me fall." He stood beside her, his hand brushing hers. "I'd never let you fall," he said. "I messed up, Amara. I doubted you, hid from you, and I'll spend every day making it right. I love you." She turned to him, her eyes searching his. "I'm still hurt," she said, her voice trembling. "But I saw you tonight, fighting for me. I'm sorry I doubted you too." He cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheek. "We start over," he said. "No secrets, just us." Their lips met, soft and slow, a promise sealed under the stars. His hands slid to her waist, pulling her close, and she felt the warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart. The kiss was a bridge, not erasing the past, but building toward a future. As they pulled apart, the river's ripples catching the light, Amara knew the fight wasn't over. Reginald's allies were still out there, and Cassandra's shadow lingered, but with Julian by her side and Naomi's pendant around her neck, she was ready for whatever came next. The Charles River shimmered under a late afternoon sun, its surface a mirror of Boston's skyline, all glass and steel softened by the golden light. Amara Ellis stood on the banks, her sneakers sinking into the damp grass, the jade pendant around her neck catching the sun's rays. It had been weeks since the gala at the Langston Hotel, where she'd faced down Cassandra Reed and Reginald Holt, reclaiming her place as a Carver and proving her love for Julian. The viral video was debunked, Cassandra was under investigation, and Reginald's schemes had crumbled. But standing here, with the river's gentle roar in her ears, Amara felt something new, a quiet strength, a fire that had burned through the dark and come out brighter. Julian Carver stood beside her, his usual suit traded for a soft navy sweater and jeans, his dark hair ruffling in the breeze. He was no longer the man who'd hidden for a year, testing her with silence and doubt. He was her partner now, his green eyes warm with a love she'd fought to believe in. The pendant at her throat, a gift from Naomi Carver, was a reminder of the family she'd found, not just in Julian, but in herself, the woman who'd refused to break. "You're quiet," Julian said, his voice a low hum against the river's song. "What's going on in that head of yours?" Amara smiled, small but real, her curls dancing in the wind. "Just soaking it in," she said, her gaze drifting to the water. "A month ago, I thought I'd lost everything. You, the company, me. Now, it's like I'm seeing the world again." He stepped closer, his shoulder brushing hers, a spark of warmth in the cool air. "You didn't lose anything," he said, his tone soft but sure. "You built it back, Amara, stronger than before." She laughed, the sound light and free, a stark contrast to the weight she'd carried for so long. "We built it," she corrected, nudging him. "Don't think you're off the hook for that whole Mr. Pierce nonsense." He grinned, a rare flash of playfulness that made her heart skip. "Fair enough. But I'd say we're even after you took down Cassandra with a notebook." They fell into step, walking along the riverbank, the city's hum a distant backdrop. The grass was soft underfoot, the air crisp with the scent of water and earth. Amara's white sundress swayed as she moved, the pendant gleaming against her brown skin. Julian's hand found hers, their fingers lacing together, and for a moment, the world felt right, simple, whole. "I got a call from Naomi this morning," Julian said, his voice thoughtful. "She wants you to take a bigger role in Carver Enterprises, maybe lead the new community investment arm. It's your call, but she thinks you're the one to make it happen." Amara's steps slowed, her mind spinning. Carver Enterprises was Julian's legacy, a sprawling empire of tech and real estate, but it was also a chance to do good, to fund programs for kids in Roxbury, to amplify voices like hers. Naomi had seen her strength, her fire, and this was an invitation to wield it. "It's a lot," she admitted, kicking at a pebble. "I've spent so long fighting to keep it alive, leading it. That's a whole new game." Julian stopped, turning to face her, his eyes steady. "You're ready for it," he said. "You've been running the show behind the scenes for years. This is just making it official." She looked at him, his faith in her a warmth that seeped into her bones. "What if I'm not enough?" she asked, her voice soft, echoing the doubts she'd carried since stepping into his world. He reached out, tucking a curl behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "You're more than enough," he said. "You always have been, Amara. You're my fire." The words hit deep, stirring a love she'd fought to reclaim. She stepped closer, the space between them shrinking, and his hand slid to her jaw, warm and sure. The air crackled, charged with the same intensity she'd felt in the pool room, but softer now, grounded in trust. She wanted to kiss him, to let the river carry away the last of her fears. But he spoke first, his tone shifting to something serious. "I've been thinking," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "I didn't bring you here just to walk by the river." Amara tilted her head, a smile tugging at her lips. "Oh yeah? Got some big plan, Carver?" He took a breath, his hand dropping to his pocket, and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught, her heart pounding as he opened it, revealing a ring, a simple band with a single emerald that matched the fire in his eyes. "Amara," he began, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "I lost you once to that accident, and I almost lost you again because of my own stupidity. I hid, I doubted, and I'll spend my life making up for it. I don't promise you the world. You've already got that. I promise you me, to love you, to stand by you for as long as you'll have me. Will you marry me? Again?" Tears spilled down her cheeks and she nodded, unable to speak. He slipped the ring onto her finger, its weight a perfect fit, and she threw her arms around him, laughing through her tears. He lifted her off the grass, spinning her as the river roared its approval, and when he set her down, their lips met in a kiss that tasted of salt and promises, the kind that could weather any storm. The vow renewal came quickly, a small ceremony in a Roxbury church, its stained glass windows casting rainbows across the pews. Amara wore a gown designed by a local black artist, its ivory silk flowing like water, the jade pendant gleaming at her throat. Naomi stood at her side, her smile wide, her burgundy dress catching the light. Julian Ellis, Amara's mother, sat in the front row, her eyes misty but proud, and Nia Harper, her best friend, was a burst of joy, her locks adorned with tiny flowers. A handful of friends and Carver employees filled the space, their cheers mingling with the organ's soft hymn. Julian waited at the altar, his linen suit crisp, his gaze never wavering as Amara walked toward him. They exchanged vows under the church's arched ceiling, their voices steady and sure. "I vow to see you," Amara said, her hand in his. "Not just as you are, but as the man you're becoming, through every storm and sunrise." "And I vow to trust you," Julian replied, his thumb brushing her knuckles, "to fight for you, to love you, always." When he kissed her, the church erupted, but Amara felt only him, the man who'd seen her fire and chosen to burn with it. They danced at the reception, a small gathering in the church hall, Nia's laughter and Vivian's teasing filling the air with warmth. Weeks later, they settled into a new life. Amara and Julian moved into a brownstone in Cambridge, its walls lined with books and art, a space that felt like theirs. Amara took on the community investment arm of Carver Enterprises, launching Beacon Fund, a program to support Black and brown youth in Roxbury with scholarships and mentorship. Her book, Fire in the Dark, was picked up by a publisher, its pages a testament to her journey as a Black woman navigating love and power. Julian stood by her, his business savvy amplifying her vision, his love a steady anchor. One evening, as they unpacked boxes in their new home, Julian watched her with a grin. She was arranging records on a shelf. Aretha Franklin, Nina Simone, her own vinyl from that Roxbury jazz night years ago, her focus absolute. He stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're gonna change the world, aren't you?" he teased, his breath warm against her neck. She laughed, leaning into him. "Maybe just a corner of it," she replied, turning to face him. He kissed her forehead, his touch gentle, and she felt the last shadows of their past lift. Cassandra, Reginald, the accident. They were gone, burned away by the fire they'd rebuilt together. Their honeymoon took them to Cape Cod, a rented cottage overlooking the sea. They spent days walking the shore, cooking simple meals, laughing over spilled wine. One night, under a blanket of stars, they sat on the porch, the ocean's rhythm a lullaby. Amara rested her head on Julian's shoulder, her hand finding his, the emerald ring catching the moonlight. "I used to be so afraid," she said, her voice soft. "Afraid of losing you, of not being enough. But not anymore." He turned to her, his eyes searching hers. "Why's that?" he asked, his voice a warm hum. She smiled, unguarded and true. "Because I have you, and I have me." Julian pulled her closer, his voice low and sure. "You've always had me, Amara. From that first night in the jazz club, I was yours." She laughed, the sound mingling with the waves, and they sat there, wrapped in each other, the stars a canopy over their new beginning. The past, a 5-year coma, a year of secrets, a night of betrayal, had forged them. But this moment was theirs, a fire that would burn on. Back in Cambridge, life found a rhythm. Amara met with Naomi weekly, learning the ropes of Carver Enterprises, her confidence growing with every deal. Julian softened, his guarded edges melting, replaced by a warmth she'd come to cherish. They hosted dinners at the Brownstone, the dining room alive with laughter, Nia's stories and Vivian's wisdom filling the space. Nia's own romance with a local artist added a spark, her teasing keeping Amara grounded. One evening, as Amara stood on the Brownstone's balcony, the city lights stretching before her, she wrote a letter. Not to Julian, but to the girl she'd been, the one who'd fought through Roxbury's struggles and Boston's elite. "You were enough," she wrote, "even when they said you weren't. Keep burning." She tucked the letter into her notebook, a vow to never forget. But peace was never perfect. A week later, as Amara sorted through Beacon Fund applications, her phone pinged with an email from Nia. "Heads up. Got a tip. Cassandra's out on bail and someone's stirring trouble. Might be one of her old allies. Stay sharp." Amara's heart skipped, the old fear creeping back. She showed the email to Julian, who pulled her close, his jaw tight. "They won't touch us," he said, his voice firm. "Not again." She nodded, but the email lingered, a shadow on the horizon. Happiness, she realized, was a flame, bright, fierce, but needing care to keep it alive. She looked out at the river, its depths vast and unknowable, and felt a quiet resolve. Whatever came next, she wasn't alone. She had Julian, Naomi, Vivian, Nia, and herself, stronger than she'd ever dreamed. As she stood on the riverbank one last time, Julian's hand in hers, Amara let the water's song carry her fears away. The future was hers to shape, a story she'd write with love and fire, no matter what shadows waited. Hey, if Amara and Julian's journey has set your heart ablaze, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. What's next for this fiery couple? Will Cassandra's shadow return to dim their light? Share your thoughts, and stay tuned for more stories that burn bright in the dark.